Today, we're diving into the pretty shocking psychology of why your brain might literally be lying to you right now. You see, every single time you remember something, your brain is kind of like a movie director editing a scene. Details just disappear, new ones get added, and emotions completely replace cold, hard facts. We're going to uncover why innocent people confess to crimes they absolutely didn't commit, why siblings remember the exact same childhood totally differently, and how your own mind can convince you that absolute fiction is reality. So think about this for a second. What if your absolute happiest childhood memory never actually happened? Seriously, picture your 5th birthday. The smell of the cake, the bright colors of the balloons, maybe even your mom's smile. Now imagine discovering years later that none of it was real. No cake, no balloons, you weren't even living at that house. It sounds impossible, right? No way that could happen. But it does. Your brain is literally rewriting your memories even as you're listening to me right now. Scientists have figured out that your memory isn't a flawless recording. It's a storyteller. And sometimes it lies. We usually think memory works exactly like a video camera, right? Something happens, your brain hits record, and later you just press play. But reality? Reality is actually a lot more like rebuilding a giant puzzle from tiny scattered pieces of sound, emotion, and color. Instead of storing the whole picture, your brain just hangs on to these tiny fragments. So when you recall an event years later, you aren't just replaying it, you're rebuilding it from scratch. And here's the really scary part. Rebuilding essentially means guessing.
Section 1. The Shopping Mall Experiment. A Stolen Memory.
Let's look at a fascinating story about a woman named Sarah to see how this guessing game actually works. Sarah vividly remembered getting lost in a shopping mall when she was 6. She remembered the bright lights, crying for hours, even the smell of an old woman's perfume. It felt unbelievably real. But here's the actual truth. Step 1, it was actually her older cousin who got lost in the mall. Step 2, her family retells that story hundreds of times at gatherings. Over the years, Step 3 kicks in. Sarah's brain slowly replaces her cousin with herself in the story. And finally, Step 4, a completely false memory becomes her absolute reality. Her memory was literally stolen from her older cousin, and her brain rebuilt this reality that she believed with absolute certainty without her ever even realizing it.
So you might be thinking, was Sarah's case just some weird fluke? Not at all. To prove this wasn't an isolated incident, researchers conducted an incredible study. They secretly slipped a totally fake Lost in the Mall story into volunteers' real childhood memories. This is the memory experiment that absolutely shocked the psychology world. They wanted to see if someone could be deliberately convinced they experienced something that never ever happened.
And the results? Shockingly, the participants didn't just passively believe the fake story. They actively built it. They started describing specific clothing they were supposedly wearing. They remembered full-blown conversations that never actually took place. They even recalled distinct smells and emotions from a day that completely did not exist. The crucial point here is that these people generated their own vivid sensory details from scratch. They weren't just being gullible. It happened because our brains naturally hate a vacuum. They just fill in the missing gaps to make the story feel complete.
Section 2. How your brain fills gaps. The guessing game.
We naturally assume that if someone sounds super certain, they just must be right. But listen, confidence absolutely does not equal truth. Imagine 2 witnesses seeing the exact same robbery. Months later, one confidently remembers the thief wearing a black jacket, while the other firmly insists it was blue. Both sound incredibly certain, but both could be completely wrong. Because your brain hates missing information, it'll just quietly insert details, like, say, imagining soft music playing at a restaurant simply because your brain expected it to be there. Over time, news reports, questions from friends, or even movies subtly reshape your memory without you ever noticing.
Think about the age of 2. If you think you remember being 2 years old, I hate to break it to you, but you're likely just recalling a reconstructed narrative. Childhood memories are incredibly fragile. Most of our early memories are actually just built from family photographs, stories, and our own imagination. You see an old picture, your parents describe the day, and years later, you genuinely believe you remember the event itself. But you don't. You're actually just remembering the photograph, not the original experience.
Now, let's see how this builds into something way bigger. Have you heard of the Mandela Effect? This gap filling we've been talking about scales up massively into this wild phenomenon where shared human expectations create the exact same false memory across millions of brains. Millions of people around the world will confidently share the exact same incorrect memory about a brand logo, a famous movie line, or even a historical event that literally never existed. It feels super mysterious, but honestly, it's just human brains building incomplete memories in the exact same logical way.
Now you might be thinking, well, okay, but my highly emotional memories must be perfectly accurate, right? Nope. Don't rely on strong emotions to lock in a memory, because they actually tend to distort it. Fear narrows your attention, so you miss the bigger picture. Stress completely warps your perception of the event, and excitement, it exaggerates the details, completely distorting the facts. You remember how you felt, for sure, but not necessarily what happened. That's exactly why witnesses to a car accident often disagree dramatically. Each brain recorded a totally different, emotionally warped version of the event.
And here is a huge modern problem. Your photo becomes your memory, not the original experience. Social media is accelerating this distortion every single day. Just think about your vacation photos. Constantly looking at a heavily curated picture strengthens certain visual details in your brain, while weakening or straight up deleting others. Eventually, the picture literally overwrites your actual lived experience. It's crazy. Section 3. The danger of false memories. Real-world consequences. You see, this isn't just some quirky psychological trick. These quiet works of fiction in our minds aren't always harmless. False memories can actually destroy personal relationships when family members remember entirely different versions of events. They influence major court cases, where an incorrect but super confident eyewitness can alter an entire trial. And honestly, most terrifyingly, it leads to false confessions. Powerful suggestions and repeated questioning can actually convince innocent people to confess to crimes they never committed, not because they want to lie, but because they eventually believe the false memory themselves. Section 4. Protecting your mind. Making memory reliable.
So how do we navigate a world where our minds occasionally lie to us? Well, to make your memories more reliable, you've got to take action. First, write important events down immediately, soon after they happen. Second, take physical notes instead of relying purely on your memory. Third, be a little cautious when hearing others' versions of events. Remember, their brains are guessing too. Fourth, never assume absolute confidence equals truth, whether it's in yourself or in others. And lastly, just stay curious. Always remember that remembering is not the exact same thing as actually knowing.
I want you to consider this quote for a second. Think of memory like a painting. Every time you look at it, a tiny brushstroke changes. The human brain doesn't preserve the past in a time capsule. It recreates it again and again and again, subtly changing the picture without you ever even realizing it. Perhaps the absolute greatest illusion isn't that our memories fade, but that we believe they never change.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, kind of unsettling thought to ponder. What's one childhood memory you've always believed was completely true? Picture it clearly for me. The details, the colors, the feelings. Got it? Okay, now ask yourself, how certain are you now?